I'm excited not only to talk to Brock because we love him, but about the game that he has got Saturday night. Washington at Oregon, one of the best games in the country. 6 o'clock here locally on Fox 6. Brock Huard, college football analyst for Fox, joins us now. What's up, Brock? How are you?
Well, good afternoon, close to afternoon out there in Birmingham. What Joel doesn't seem to remember was last year, every single week, they had like the most epic game ever, including with Ohio State and Michigan in the snow with, I think, the most watched numbers in the history of college football for a regular season game. And that night we had Stanford and Notre Dame in front of 2,000 Notre Dame fans in Palo Alto. So it's a total inverse. Last year, our producer put together numbers at the end of the year because we had some great games early. And then our last 10 weeks, our games were decided by an average of 29 points.
Yikes.
So this season has been 180. They have had blowouts after blowouts after blowouts, and we have had some of the most compelling theater. I would say in my 15 years on the road, this is from beginning to end the best venues and the best games we've been a part of.
I don't think people realize, I know you probably do, Michael Penix Jr. has the second most passing attempts in the FBS this year, only behind Will Rogers at Mississippi State. As good as Bo Nix is playing, is there a chance on the road at Autzen Michael Penix Jr. could outplay Bo Nix?
He could outplay Bo Nix, but not win. Yeah, I mean, statistically speaking, I think last week he had under 300 yards and 40-mile-an-hour winds for the first time all year. I mean, he's put up ridiculous yards. He's number one in yards. These two are off the charts, top 10 in just about every statistical category when it comes to quarterback play. So, yeah, he could throw for 450 yards, and they could score 35 points and still lose 49-35. Oregon has averaged 48.5 points a game since Georgia. They've not had a game where they've scored less than 41 points since Georgia. You put on the tape, and I don't know how you defend them. And I went into super, super Nerdville last night. I don't know if you guys ever get just into nerd dorkiness, like, what am I doing? And while you're doing it, you're like, what a dork. Like, my wife's looking at me on the couch like, what are you doing over there? And I got my stopwatch out. I'm timing throws on my game tape of Bo Nix, how quickly the ball's out of his hand. I'm charting all the plays, all of his 24 passes against Colorado. And honestly, I got done, and part of me felt like that was a really cool exercise. And then part of me is like, don't ever do that again. I just must have appeared like a total dork. But here's the bottom line. 24 pass attempts. The ball was in his hand an average of 1.88 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah.
A little context to that. A season ago in the NFL, in the shotgun, where you remember Big Ben, like hot potato, just the ball is out, ball's out, ball's out. He was number one in the league in the NFL at 2.33. Tom Brady was number two at 2.50. If you want to know why Bo Nix in Oregon is on their way to shatter a record and a number that makes, and I know you guys love numbers, especially you, Lance, a number that makes no sense. Bo Nix has been sacked one time. In 9 games, Bo Nix has been sacked one time. And they even contend it wasn't a sack. It was like a scramble run that should have not even been considered a sack. Last year, the FBS Power 5 leader was Utah. Cam Rising was sacked 13 times. Army, Air Force, over the years, sometimes they're 3, 5, 7 sacks in a season. Bo Nix has been sacked one time, and it's a huge part of why they've been so good.
Yeah, and he's got 5+ touchdowns in 3 straight games, which is insane. But there's a lot of people around here that say it's just Pac-12 defenses. That's the only reason Bo Nix is having success. Your thought on that?
Same reason the people out west are saying, gosh, no wonder Jackson Dart's 8-1, Jaden Daniels is 7-2 and in the top 10, because it's Pac-12 quarterbacks getting to play SEC defenses, right? I mean, you could go both ways.
Good counter, yep.
You know, Damon actually, my older brother, said that to me. He said, gosh, I wonder if some of these SEC dudes do look at Bo Nix and go, gosh, he was broken down there. Go out west, man. Less defense, less notoriety, less attention, less exposure, less burden and weight on your shoulders, and you just get to go play like Bo's doing. But then you do flip it around and go, Jaden Daniels never played this way at ASU. And Jackson Dart didn't have this kind of performance and consistency at USC. So I think it has a whole lot more to do with your supporting cast. Kenny Dillingham, in this case, the coordinator at Oregon, I don't know if they have a trend lines for the Broyles Award for top assistant of the year, but to me, there's not even a close second. He has been so good, and he will be a head coach shortly because of what they're doing offensively. People cannot stop right now.
Well, there were some Saturdays Bo Nix didn't make it through Tiger Walk without being sacked one time, and now it's one sack for the season.
And Kenny Dillingham was the offensive coordinator then too at Auburn. It's so weird.
Yeah, the supporting cast, it starts with that head coach. I don't want to get into a theology discussion, but I do believe heaven is different for every person, and I will be a star of a radio podcast or a video podcast when I get to heaven, and my interview in heaven with Brock will look exactly like this blurred background. This is very heavenly as we look at you today. I like this.
What if I turn my head right there, the little sun from Colorado, the light?
If the last time we talked to you, Alabama was a dynasty, and now Alabama's lost 2 games. What is your takeaway of this Alabama football team with another challenging road game this Saturday?
Yeah, Alabama has still been a dynasty. They've lost 2 games by, 1 possession in each of those games. They are right there. But their play and their recruiting and their talent has elevated their peers. It has elevated the coaching in the conference. Brian Kelly's a goofball and certainly got off on the wrong foot, at least in the social media realm and everything else. Duke can coach. There's a reason Scott Woodward wanted him there to just add a level of legitimacy, and they're going to build. And obviously Kirby, Nick knew it. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I want him going to Georgia. Like he knows the background and the history and the recruiting and everything that he's capable of doing. So I think it is much more of a testament to the rising tide. Mike Leach can coach. He knows how to win games and build a competent, not a national title program, but an incredibly competent program. So the money, the resources, the recruiting speak for themselves in that conference. Now with Heupel's system and this transfer portal and the NIL world and the money and everything else, you give those tools to other competent, excellent coaches. It's elevated the entirety of the competitiveness in that conference, and I think will be harder for Nick Saban how many more years he has left in Tuscaloosa.
Brock Huard is with us at Brock Huard on Twitter. You'll see him 6 o'clock, Fox 6, with that fantastic Oregon-Washington game Saturday night. He is on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. It has become, I guess, acceptable to say this week, I know Ohio State played in crap conditions, but they should have been able to line up and run it for more than 207 yards, run at will against a bad Northwestern team. Do you share that? I mean, I don't think anybody's banging, C.J. Stroud's performance throwing the ball. Nobody was going to throw in that situation, but do you subscribe to the why couldn't they just run for 500 yards argument?
A little bit. I mean, the one thing that Pat Fitzgerald team is still a little bit stout, stopping the run. And you do play on a field that your cleats can disappear in, right? I mean, that grass is
it's like a wheat field,
long. Ryan, I mean, they know from a speed standpoint, that's the only way. I mean, I remember way back, Machine, last century, we played at Ohio State, and it was the same thing. I remember going out there like, oh, my gosh. Some of these Big Ten schools, like I felt like I was in a forest. Like I couldn't even see my cleats in their grass. Not anymore. Not anymore. Michigan, Ohio State recruit more speed than anybody else in that conference, and they want to play fast. And that, in the environment, the wind, the grass, the weather, all of it just slowed that game down. It's like Tom Brady used to say, right? Tom Brady loved snow games, loved inclement weather. Why? Because now everybody plays at my speed. Instead of running a 5.3 and the game's flying around me, now everybody can't run, everybody can't move, everybody is frozen, and advantage Tom Brady. So I think those conditions had a lot to do with it. That said, if you're a Michigan fan, it does give you some encouragement to know that they're maybe not two-dimensional when they play, that it may have to all be some of the Stroud show. And anytime in those matchups of what should be undefeated teams, you make a team one-dimensional, you have a better chance to win.
Somebody asked us earlier if there's only 3 teams that can win a national championship, and we all agreed it was Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan. Would you go deeper than 3 right now?
Yeah, I don't know how much separation there is with Tennessee and Michigan. I still got to see it with Michigan. And some of it is just their style of play, right? That you look at it and you go, and they're just not blowing people out in the first half of games. They eventually get to the late rounds and they punish them. And those body blows and their physical nature. And I know Klatt is on with you guys every Monday, and he was camped out. And I think, didn't he buy a condo in Ann Arbor for 4 weeks? I mean, they were there for the entire month. So he grew to appreciate that style of just a heavyweight that's going to get it like Foreman to the late rounds and knock you out. Can that formula against Ohio State or a Georgia, can they do that? Well, we saw it last year to a degree, right? In the semifinal game, and it was Now, that was a heavyweight in Georgia that arguably was the biggest, baddest heavyweight we've seen in decades defensively. But I don't know how much separation. TCU I've seen a couple times. I may see them next week as well. Yeah, I think from having been there, done it, having enough substance, enough size, enough strength, enough break and not bend. Yeah, I don't think they're at that level. But how much really separates a Tennessee? How much really separates an Alabama? It was a field goal in Alabama's 2 losses. I'd probably put those two a little bit closer than I would TCU. Well, Oregon's been pretty darn good, but USC, some of the others. I mean, Oregon has a chance, and I think they're gonna put up 50 points again this week, and then it's Utah, and then obviously a Pac-12 title game. It sets up for Oregon. There's still an opportunity and an end to that playoff for the Ducks.
You're saying a lot of Western teams there in Oregon and USC and UCLA and Utah all in the top 13. Washington's at 25. Oregon State's been ranked throughout the year. Do you see that as a huge positive for the Pac-12 or a huge bonus for the Big Ten with USC and UCLA coming in? But we sort of needed a Western resurgence of football, and it seems like we've gotten that this year.
Well, I see that just as a kid that grew up listening to Keith Jackson in the Pac-10. Like, it's a bummer. I mean, that's just frankly how I see it. Because just geographically speaking, just decades, and I'm not trying to be Bill Walton here, but right, if there were no contracts signed, if there was no agreements made before this season, and this was UCLA and USC, it would be, wow, okay, this transfer portal's real. Everything I said about the SEC, okay, now Lincoln Riley is out west. Now Chip has found this thing. Now Dan Lanning is out at Oregon. Right now, there's enough money in these places, enough collectives down in LA and in Eugene to compete with some of the Big Ten and the SEC. But that got washed away. Right? I mean, that got washed away before the season with USC and UCLA leaving. A lot of rumblings about what is next with Arizona State, Colorado, Utah. What is next with Oregon, Washington, Stanford, Cal to the Big Ten. So I can't look at it kind of in good faith without that in the back of my mind going, yeah, it would be great, right? It would be geographically pretty cool. It would be quite a testament to George Kliavkoff, new leadership, everything they've done, being kind of trendsetters without having divisions and have the 2 best teams play for a title. But a lot of it's fairly diminished because of, inevitably what's coming.
All right, we've told you how bloody Saturday could be. 2 of those games, Saturday night, TCU, Texas on ABC, but the Brock game will be Oregon and Washington. It's got potential there on Fox, 6 o'clock here locally on Fox 6. You'll see Brock Huard there. Thank you for the time, Brock. Always fun.
Don't feel too sorry for Klatt, okay?
Klatt. We give Klatt, no.
Don't feel too sorry for his games. He has Ohio State, Michigan looming, all right?
That's right.
He gets that one in a couple weeks. Always appreciate you, boys. Be well.
Thank you, Brock. Take care, buddy. At Brock Huard on Twitter. Always fun talking with him on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.